everybody. Welcome to my channel. This is a very exciting day. I am premiering a new show that is very exciting to me. It is a new segment called Women Are. It's a panel show highlighting women in various creative fields. So we have amazing guests over the next 8 weeks that we are going to be talking with, including voiceover artists, showrunners, board game designers, all sorts of awesome, awesome creative women. And I will be doing the episodes for the next 8 weeks, but hopefully you guys will like the show enough so that we can do more after that. The reason I thought of doing this show is that I wanted viewers of all backgrounds to be inspired and to be educated about women and their creativity. The more that we normalize women, and the fact that they are behind some of our amazing creative things that we love, that's the faster that we as a society can just be more accepting and supportive of creators and creativity from all different backgrounds. Also, one of the other reasons I really want to do this show is that by featuring these amazing, talented panelists, I just wanted to show women, especially younger women, that all creative fields are open to them and that there are so many different paths to pursuing those careers if they are inspired to follow them. Because I mean, I talk about this a lot when in my books and when I do speaking engagements, but it's so important to remember that visibility equals possibility for people. So if you can see somebody who inspires you in this world and how they've achieved the things they've achieved, the ups and the downs, you can dream yourself in your own version of their shoes. So if you're never exposed the idea that a woman could create a board game, or if you could make your own video game, or on Twine, or even a more advanced platform, then it might not even occur to you that it's a possibility for you. And so that is why representation is so important. When people talk about representation on screen, on film and stuff, it becomes sort of a catchphrase that sort of brushes aside. You know, it becomes a solipsism that you just are like, okay, I hear that word a lot. But if you really think about it, a little kid who sees something on a screen might actually be inspired to become a scientist or a computer programmer based on a character they see. And that's what I found in my career, playing scientists and hackers and things like that. So hopefully the panel will open the doors for people from all walks of life, not just women, to be introduced to various professions. And then lastly, one of the reasons I wanted to do this show was that it's kind of naive to assume that identifying as a woman does not bring up issues when you are trying to pursue a career, or just basically live. And I wanted these panels to be a place where our panelists could speak really frankly about issues and gender and what they've had to deal with in their career. So if at the base of it, we only just highlight the fact that women identifying people have a different journey and different challenges that they have to face than male identifying people in this world, then I think we've done our job. And it allows everyone to become better allies to each other, or at the very least, not an enemy, because some people are very hostile to the idea that we have to talk about gender in everything. I know that in my experience, you know, I was a little bit of a unicorn when I first started 12 years ago in the nerd space. And I kind of was like, I don't need women only events because I'm just a person, you know, I just want to be one of the people. And I realized that that was a privileged point of view that I could relay because I was treated better than I think the average woman in some spaces. And so the fact that we might need these kind of spaces to talk about gender and our own journeys. And this ideally is a safe space that we can do that. So along that vein, each week, this show will be giving $750 to various charities that sort of tie into the profession that we're talking about this week, that week. And this week, we're going to give our donation to womeningames.org. So if you'd like to join us in helping out that charity, it's a nonprofit. You can go directly to their website at womeningames.org and help them out. So I'm going to stop my monologue now and welcome our amazing guests to the screen. We have 4 of them this week, and they all really inspire me because not only are they from all different backgrounds, have all different perspectives, but they are just fascinating and really good at what they do. So starting with, we have Cup of Noodle at Cup of Noodle on Twitch. Yay. Thank you, Kason, for being here. We have Ammunition, who's at Ammunition. Hi, Ann. Thank you for being here. We have Silvervale, who is at _Silver_, who is a V streamer, which I'm excited to talk about. And we also have WoW Grandma 78, who, as you can imagine, plays WoW, but also is an amazing person other than that. So to kick off our panel, I'm going to ask each of you in turn, like what got you into streaming, and how did you find yourself here in a sense? Kapano, will you, Kason, would you start?
I've been streaming since 2014. I subsequently started over again in 2016. I just had to restart and do it all over again. But what got me into it was I just like the idea that you can actually, hang out with people, get to know people while playing games. I never thought growing up playing these games that I would have an opportunity like this. But I was like, you get to play video games and talk to people, and it gives me a reason to buy all of these games. It was like, I'm in. And I've been doing it ever since, and I love it.
Amazing. And what made you take off those 2 years? Was that like a choice based on the profession or just a personal reason?
When I first started streaming, I didn't know anything about the space or the content, and I was actually streaming with my brother. And we kind of had like a duo stream going, but then it hit him like, I just like enjoying my games. He was here for the games, and I think I was here for the interaction. And he was kind of like, I want my games back. So I was like, fine. So well, I guess I'll do it over. It was scary. It was like, fine, I'm just going to start over. Cause this was way before, you could change your name on Twitch. So I was like, well, and I think at the time we had like maybe 3,000 followers or something. It's like,
Oh,
fine,
wow.
starting all over. And I started back in 2016, and I've just been streaming ever since.
Oh, that's amazing. Now, was it hard for you to kind of reinvent yourself aside from being kind of tied to him as a sort of a performance identity kind of thing?
It was scary starting all over because you feel like, I'm not going to be able to do this again. But in doing it, I did learn a lot. So it was like things I was able to take with me. Surprisingly, like starting over, only a handful of people made the switch or the transition. But I went into it knowing a little bit about what I was doing as opposed to just going in blind. So
Yeah.
I kind of already had a scope on what I thought I wanted to do. And it was just kind of just finding myself along the way.
Yeah, it's so interesting online. People do not want to move with you if you change what you do. They don't want to see you do anything else but what they love for you to do. Like it is really tough. Anyway, well, I'd love to talk a little bit more about that after we talk to our another other panelists and Munition. I have known about your work for years. You have actually inspired me. I think you're an amazing kind of icon for especially for women in Twitch. And so thank you so much for coming to my races chat. I did a fundraiser and you were so kind to come. But if you could talk a little bit about how you got into streaming and how you found your niche, that would be awesome.
Yeah, great. First I'm like blushing. You're so nice to me. I'm just like, oh wow, okay.
No, I do admire
Really
you. Like I'm kind of fangirling. I'm like, gosh, she's so cool.
Thank you. So I started streaming also back in 2014. I was working full time. I had just graduated from college, and I was working as a graphic designer at a company in LA. And I was watching streams just kind of in my free time while I was working. I would do my designy thing and then have like Twitch open on my monitor. And I just started doing it in my free time after work. Then, I would stream, I would go to work, and then 7 p.m. I would start streaming for like 3 hours till, 10, and then wake up and just do it again. And I got really into it. And I've pretty much just been doing that ever since. I went full time about a year after I started, I think it was.
Wow.
Year and a half.
Yeah. And it really shows. I didn't know that you were a graphic designer before I decided to do a little investigation, but I always admired the fact that you seem very savvy in presenting your brand. And I know that's the douchiest word. I hate it when people say that, but I don't think about it that way. I think about it like I'm just presenting the audience an easy way to know who I am, right? And that's really what good graphic design is. And instantly, when everybody sees your website and everything, it's just like so polished and professional, and you know yourself well enough to infuse yourself into that brand. And so I was not surprised to know that, but I was excited to know that you had those skills.
Yeah, it definitely comes in handy when you're, doing streaming and stuff. I am personally interested in video editing and motion graphics and graphic design. And those three things have really been a huge boon to me as a streamer too.
Yeah, have you been able to sort of cultivate those skills as you, or because I find that streaming, you get on a train and it just won't stop, and it's hard to improve yourself as you're on the train because you kind of just get swept away. Like I used to do like Photoshop tutorials and editing tutorials. And then once you just get on a track, it's hard to be like, I need to learn more things. Is it almost like, do you try to make it a habit to learn those new things, or just kind of like, oh, I need to learn this because I need to use it for my career in this way?
I think I'm one of those people who needs to work. And if I slow down, I will die. So I like my brain has to be like, stimulated by things at all times. And so I find it very interesting and motivating to learn new things, especially with like graphic design and video editing. And so, yeah, I feel like I've spent the past 6 years that I've been streaming, I've also spent trying to learn new techniques in video editing and motion graphics and things like that. So I spend, if I get the opportunity to practice those things, I really enjoy that stuff. It's just hard when you're also streaming full time.
Yeah. No, people don't understand. It's so much work. I just spent an hour and a half last night just doing thumbnails, and my mods made them for me. So I didn't even have to do the hard work. Thank you, mods. Okay, so we're going to come back to that because I think that's a really interesting point about like being able to develop yourself while you're doing this very time intensive job. Silverbale, let's talk about you because this fascinates me. Hi, Silver. Now I know Silver because she is a fan of mine and she started rating me, and I was like, she has the cutest voice. Why is she
fangirl very hard?
Well, that's very sweet. But you're not a real person. I mean, you're a real person, but you're
that's so offensive. Yes, I'm a VTuber or V streamer.
So can you talk to me about this? Because this is something I really didn't know a lot about because I guess I'm old. But
No,
how does this work? And how did you decide? When did you start streaming? How does it work, the VTuber thing? And then also, why did you decide to do it this way? Was it something you'd already watched before, or was it something you stumbled upon? Tell me your history because this is fascinating to me.
Oh, thank you. I'm Silver, and I've been streaming officially as a VTuber for about a year. I originally wanted to get into streaming just to make friends and to build a community and to like share my passion for gaming. And I was gonna do the webcam thing, but just anonymity is really nice because there's some scary people out there, and being a woman, things can get a little bit uncomfortable. But I still wanted to interact with people, and it's hard to do that just with your voice, because I can't show when I'm happy or dance around and stuff, and I get subs, and it's really nice to be able to have a way to portray that. And then I discovered VTubing, and it's actually, it's not very well known here yet. It's kind of getting into more of the mainstream eye, but it's very, very, very prominent in Japan. VTubers are used in commercials, and they're on race cars, which is pretty cool. And one of them is even an ambassador for one of the Japan National Tourism Organization campaigns, which is really, really awesome.
Wow.
So yeah, it's really cool. And a lot of people, they think that VTubing is this new thing. It came out of nowhere, and it's been around for years and years and years. It's just very new here. So it's really cool to be able to show people the benefits of it. Like if you're shy or you're uncomfortable, or you just don't want to put on makeup or not get out of your pajamas one day, then you can totally just stream as a VTuber. And you can show your personality a little more. Like when someone sees you on a webcam, they don't automatically know that much about you. They have to sit through your stream and kind of know your vibe. But for me, like you can tell like the kind of things that I like based on like my outfit and my character design. And it's very easy to kind of get a little more of an impression through a VTuber.
And how does that work? It just connects to your camera, and it's like a program that you buy?
There's a lot of different programs, and a lot of people have this question, and it's basically depends on how much money you want to invest in it, because it's surprising, but VTubing can be very, very expensive.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. I mean, it's not just like plug and play technology. You don't want to look like totally janky.
It can be very expensive, and there's a lot of tech involved too. So it's how much you want to deal with on a daily basis. Like, do you just want to turn on your webcam and then you're done? Do you want to put on a mocap suit like they do for video games? Do you want to just wear Vive trackers like in VR chat? So it really depends on how much you want to deal with on a daily basis. Wow. And then you find the programs from there. Like there's one on Steam called FaceRig that you just need your webcam, and that's really easy. And then there's Suva that a lot of people use that uses Vive trackers, and that's a little more in depth than you feel like you're a robot strapped into stuff all day. And then you have the mocap situations with the whole Unity rig, and that gets really complicated. So there's a lot of different options for people that want to just try it out, or they want to really like make it their thing and invest a lot of time into it.
It's amazing. It really is cool. I just love watching your face.
It is really cool. Oh, thank you.
Oh, that's so good. Okay, I'm going to address some questions to the whole panel, but I need to talk to Wow Grandma 78 first because I stumbled upon Wow Grandma 78 when one of my viewers was like, "Hey, you need to raid." Oh, my hand is crazy, and if you hear, by the way, I burned my hand so horrible. I need to be a VTuber because I was curling my hair and I grabbed my curling iron. I'm not kidding. I have like third-degree burns all over my hand. So, if you hear ice, that's because I'm dipping my hand over here. Well, Grandma 78, let's talk about you because I discovered you and you just are so enchanting on camera and you're so lovely with your audience and you have a dog. So can you talk to me about how you got into streaming and your history with video games? Because it's kind of fascinating.
Well, my people that I raid with for about a year said, "You need to be streaming." I'm going, "Why is anybody going to watch an old lady play a game?" But you need to be streaming. I'm always I've been on the game for 15 and a half years. So I make funny noises like murlocs and gnomes and stuff because when you're on the game for so long. So finally in January, I thought, you know what? I went down to Best Buy and I bought a camera and I plugged it in and I said, "I'm going to start streaming." I knew nothing.
Mhm.
And so a friend that I had came over and set up Nightbot and kind of got me started. And that was January 20th. And I have not missed a day since.
Wow.
So
I mean, you stream 6 hours a day?
6 sometimes. I've done the most is I've done 10 once.
Wow.
And but the thing is I love people. And so when I get on there and then you get ready to think, well, maybe I should go to bed. And then all of a sudden I rated 142 people from Europe, or I've had them from Russia, I've had them from China. And of course they'll start out in their own language, but I have really good mods. So I keep it very PG and I want a place for people to come, and I love to interact with people and things. So I I'm trying to learn. I'm learning how to say hello in Russian. I took 2 quarters of German, so I do greet my German people in Guten Morgen, and
Yeah,
they go, oh,
willkommen.
I said, well, all I learned is I have einen Bleistift, which is I have a pencil. So they laugh, but I love people. And so I'm trying to better my equipment and learn more about it. There's so much to learn in streaming.
Yeah.
And it's not just plug and play, but, dealing with little issues like the disconnects that you'll get. I've had a lot of people support me
Yeah.
to help me understand more.
Yeah, absolutely. So, talking to the whole panel, do you guys consider yourself pro streamers? And when did you kind of make that transition from pro streamer to like hobby streaming? Like, was it just purely a financial thing, or was it because you got hooked and you're just like, I just want to do this with my time. I want this to be a profession. Like, what came first, the chicken or I guess the financial egg? I'm not sure.
One, I do not consider myself a pro at all. I feel like there's so much to learn. And especially with like Twitch as a platform, it's always changing, always growing. Definitely still sitting here fangirling. I heard Ann was going to be here and I was like, oh, snap. Because, when I first started streaming, I'm like, dude, that's Ann. So,
Ann's looking surprised right now. She's like, what?
So it's kind of like, but I feel like there's so much to learn, and being able to, the cool thing about Twitch is you can kind of see your peers. So like, even if you don't know them, hi, Ann, but I can still see, the growth, and you see how things are implemented in different streams and maybe pull from certain things or try to make certain things your own. I feel like this is something where we're always learning. I don't think Twitch was the same in, 2016 as it is today. So I would be afraid to say, oh, I got this, because I feel like this is something we should always be trying to learn and grow with.
Yeah. Well, there is this whole thing. Let me turn it back to the panel. Silver, I know you've only been streaming 1 year, but do you consider yourself a pro streamer?
No, I don't really. I mean, I do it as a full-time thing, but I don't really consider myself like a pro.
Mm-hmm.
But it is flattering.
Wow, Grandma, what do you think?
Well, I started out for 2 reasons. One was to help financially because my husband passed away 4 years ago. And so it was instant. And so I all of a sudden was left with less than 2/3 of my income. So,
Wow.
but I was doing okay. But then, this is a win-win situation for me. I don't I don't do it for just money. That wasn't my thought. My thought was to get to meet people because my kids are 1,600 miles away. And so it's me and my dog, and even World of Warcraft is people. This is people, and I love people. And this interaction with people, I try to remember every person that comes on that's often enough to remember their name, try to remember where they're from. And I find that, so I guess I can use both. Although
Mm.
I'm spending the money that I do make into equipment, which
I
is
know it is a big
which
startup
is
cost. Yeah.
which is which is great.
Yeah. Well, and I think, when I think pro streamer, I think you, and I know that is I think it's kind of, I would challenge us as women to think, because I'm always like, oh, I'm not really a writer, and I'm not really a writer, and my partner's like, excuse me, you've published 2 books, you wrote a series for 7 years,
Wow.
and so there are a lot of studies about what women are not as bold as saying like, I'm really good at this, or I'm a professional, right? And so I don't know, I want to challenge myself, and also because if you're making even $5, that's part of your job, right? And so if I had a panel of guys on here, I bet there'd be a little bit of a different answer. And when did you feel like you turned pro, and how do you think that affects the way that you kind of treated all of this?
Well, as I said, I started it as a hobby. It was just something that I was doing while I was working. And
Mhm.
so initially, yeah, of course, it was just a hobby. And I would say definitely, yeah, I consider myself like a professional streamer. Um,
Yeah.
and I think for me, probably, I mean, I think every year that I have done this, there has been something that has taken me by surprise in terms of my job.
Oh, like
I
what?
think at least one thing. Well, it's like you're streaming, you're just like, I just like video games and I just want to stream and play video games and this is fun.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, people want to pay me to do this. That's cool. Oh, people want to like pay me enough that I can quit my job. Okay, that's terrifying, but also cool. And then like I don't know, I have this thing where I like don't want to be like braggy, but
No, be braggy. Listen, be confident and be who you are. Like, own
yeah.
it.
Well, I think when I started to get like more sponsorships, I'm sponsored by Red Bull, which is like a huge, I mean, that has been a thing that for me, honestly, working with Red Bull has been a dream of mine even before I knew about Twitch. Like as a
Mhm.
kid, I just had like, I would rip out the pages of like Surfer magazine and like skateboarding and stuff and just like wallpaper my walls. And I was like, that would be really cool to like be a photographer or something, like work with Red Bull.
Mhm.
So that to me was really cool. I got invited to the White House. I got to meet Michelle
Wow.
Obama. That was
Oh
like
my
one of the
God.
highlights of my
That's
life.
incredible.
So I think when you reach the point when people are like, "Hey, you're good at video games. Do you want to meet the first lady?" Then like
Then
that's
you're like, I'm a pro.
you're like that.
I'm a
That's
freaking pro.
Yeah.
Now, do you do competitions as well? Like, do you consider that like, because that's what's interesting to me. And I think that people have this perception of pro gamers that you have to be a competitive person to do esports. And in fact, like, as we could see here, we have incredible, like, Kaysen, you seem to be a variety streamer. You do a lot of different kinds of games. Wow, Grandma, you do one game. Silvervale, you seem to do a lot of chatting as well as gaming. Like, pro streamer doesn't necessarily have to be somebody who competes, but and do you think that sort of being a competitor on, in certain ways like that legitimized you as far as like the bigger audience in a little way?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of times people ask me, "Are you a professional gamer?" And I think that there's a distinction between a professional gamer and a professional streamer. Like my job is to stream,
Mm-hmm.
and I play video games, but you do like all sorts of different things. Like you mentioned, there's sometimes I'll do like cooking streams or just
Mm-hmm.
Lego building and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I don't really I consider myself a competitive person, but I don't enjoy competitions because I take it too hard.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people that if I don't perform at my absolute best and destroy everyone else, then I will take it out on myself. So I just avoid the competition altogether, but I do play a lot of like FPS games, and I think
Yeah.
that's the genre on Twitch, which is of course very popular.
Yeah,
Um
absolutely. And you're good
so
at them. But I've never been an FPS player. I feel like I get crazy. Like when somebody's hunting me, I just get crazy. And my audience can attest. It is not good. But the
yeah,
other
don't
day
play
I do.
Tarkov.
Oh my God,
Don't play
no.
Steve from
Nope.
Tarkov.
Nope. I will not be
It's a horror
touching it.
game. It's so scary.
Nope. I will not be. I played a battle royale game and I was so happy when I got one person. I was like, I murdered someone. I was like, this is not really my vibe. Anyway, wow, Grandma, I wanted to ask you, and I want to kind of ask what all of you like when you tell somebody that you stream you stream professionally or you stream a lot. What do people say? Like, wow, Grandma, especially. I want to know what your friends say when you tell them that you play 8 hours a day of video games.
Well, they keep thinking I need to take care of myself. Grandma, you need to go stretch. You need because sometimes I'll sit here 5 hours and not get out of the chair.
Mm-hmm.
So they go, I just get so interacted. But my kids, well, when I used to play the game, none of my kids play None of my grandkids play games. My husband didn't play games.
How did you get into it? Like, if like, because that's very odd. I mean, I played since I was like 5. Like, I love video games, but like, how did you
Well,
get into games
when I
if
was
you weren't
5, I had to play in a sandbox. So, so, uh, well, in 1998, and my viewers know this story, but I wanted to build my own computer. I wanted to learn how to build. I wanted to get away from that Packard Bell and build my own computer. So I had this company teach me kind of to build it, but they couldn't get the voodoo cards working. So I went to a shop, and this kid says, I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned to build my computers, and so I got RuneScape. And then I bought Quake and Unreal Tournament, and I was really terrible in both. Then StarCraft came out, and I loved StarCraft, and I played it online with phone line,
Mm-hmm.
which was terrible. And then bought Warcraft 3, and then World of Warcraft came out, and I'm an addictive person to things like that.
Yeah.
Like anything I get into, which probably shows on the hours that I stream, I go overboard. My mother used to say, "Can't you just do anything partial? Why do you always have to go overboard?" But it's my personality, and I think it's what
That's
keeps
what
me
Anne just
going.
said. Yeah, I think we all probably have that in our personalities. Like, we are dogged, we are focused, and we cannot
Yeah.
quit when we like something. I think that's probably a gamer personality.
Yeah. So, and whatever I got into, like I'd mentioned before, I got into mountain climbing.
Yeah.
In my late 40s and 50s, I summited Mount Rainier 6 times. I've done Mount Hood, Mount Rainier 6 times, but I've done Baker. I even had my grandkids at 4 and 7 to 10,000 feet, and I used to
Wow.
I carried a 70-pound pack to be able to take them to different hikes. So my husband had said, "There's no way you're going to climb a mountain." Well, you don't ever tell me I can't do something,
Yeah, of
because
course.
my
That's
personality
exactly my personality too.
is
Most of my career
okay.
out of spite. Okay, if you tell me I'm good at something, that's why I'll never get a fall guy's crown, because I choke whenever people are like, "You can do it on the last level." But if somebody's like, "You suck," then I'm like, "You're gonna eat my word. You're gonna eat those words." It's so
Right.
funny. um, Kason, do you feel like you have, like, Anne already talked about her graphic design skills, wow grandma, you obviously just have a really focus, and mountain climbing, whatever. I've never been out to a mountain. Anyway, Kason, are there other skills that you use on a daily basis, or you find really very useful, that you brought into your streaming career?
Yeah, growing up, okay, so it's rare in this day and age, but I didn't go to college. I got in, but I could not afford it. So I kind of grew up just doing everything. So it's
Mhm.
like jack of all trades, but master of none. So music was big. Absolutely love music. I
Mhm.
played a couple of different instruments. I was in a band.
Oh, wow.
I temporarily had a record label with friends. I was a bartender, fashion design, if you name it. Every other day it was like, well, I might do this or I might do that. And when I first started streaming, I used to have a website that I would get home from work and I would just upload different game dev jobs, because it was at a time when people were like, oh, I really want to get into gaming, but I don't know how. So I was like, well, it'd be cool if there was like a site. So it was like a great value indeed.com, but I would just post gaming jobs. And then from there, I would start streaming. And then it just kind of hit me. I feel
Mhm.
like the addictive personality thing is real. It's like, if
Mhm.
I'm going to do it, it's all I'm going to do. So it's like, don't teach me something new, because if it's not good, I'm going to do it until, forever. And it's like, don't teach me bad things.
Yeah.
But before you knew it, I was just solely streaming. So I'd get home from work, boot up a stream. And then I was, before I got partnered, and I got a front page, and it was for Unity Day. And it happened to be like over like a holiday weekend. So I didn't have to stream. I had to go to work on Monday. So I
Mhm.
remember Monday night, I told my husband, like, I think I might be able to do this. And he was like, well, then do it. So I went to work the next day and was like, can I work remotely? Because if they tell me no, I'm quitting. But they were really cool about it. And they're like, yeah, you just got to make sure you do what you're supposed to do. So now I pretty much just work remotely. And then from there, I stream and I do everything, So it's just making everything work. But as you
Yeah.
continue, you start learning so much more about like the business and then sponsorships. And it's literally just time management. It's the
Yeah.
best thing you can have doing this is managing your time, because
Mhm.
it goes by so
It
quickly.
does. It just kind of disappears. It's like, what? I'm supposed to write a book now? What? I'm screaming. Why am I streaming 5 times this week? Anyway. Silvervale, were you really into tech and gaming when you were a kid? Like, was there something, what made, was it the V streaming? Was V streaming a decision because you are attracted to kind of the tech side, or was it mostly a privacy issue for you?
It was mostly the tech and just like I like anime a lot and video games, and I've been gaming ever since I was little. So gaming's been in my life, my whole life, and I love it. But it was more just it was something unique and different. Like it was when I was starting to get into stream, like I didn't really just want to be another webcam person. I wanted to try something unique and different. And then I discovered VTubing and it was just almost perfect for me. Like I could bring out my creativity and my love for tech and just a bunch of different programs and like my art background. So I think it was just perfect and I really, really enjoy it.
Yeah. And I'd like to talk. I mean, I want to transition to some kind of woman specific questions, but especially
I know it's
for
a lot of tech. I'm sorry.
no, I love the tech stuff. No, it just I think it's really interesting because I'm sure all of us, and I'm going to assume that I'd love to hear you guys' experience about privacy and people having more incidents of people kind of crossing the line as far as you're being a woman and how do you protect yourself from those kind of things. I mean, I don't know. I wrote a book several years ago and I had a whole chapter on a lot of situations where I was not treated very well and people were outside my house and threatening me. And it was, in retrospect, it actually took a lot of therapy to get through. I kind of brushed under the company, I brushed under the cap, but I realized that there was a lot of PTSD and stress and trauma that I experienced having that sort of the violation of my self-worth because I was getting criticized so much online and paying attention to it, but B, having that sort of personal boundary crossed in a way that you don't feel safe. So now if I had known now that I knew then, I would have been much more careful about using PO boxes, not buying things in my own name, like all those things that I've learned. Are there instances you guys have had? Have you had to sort of protect yourself in those ways? And what would you recommend somebody starting out do before they even start to be able to ensure that those kind of things won't happen to them? And I know that you've talked about a lot about the misogyny and things like that online and all the hate speech. You have an amazing clip from a couple years ago where you highlighted what you were experiencing on Rainbow Six. And so you're being an advocate for people and highlighting that there is that stuff out there. What would you advise people and how do you approach it as a person?
I think that it's really important for everyone, not even streamers, but just people in general, to be more aware of internet security and especially like researching social engineering and how people can use one tiny detail to get to many other things about you that, because like stalking and things like that are not an issue just for streamers, right? Like regular people can have that happen to them. And so I think people in general just should be more careful with what they're putting on the internet, even if you're not a streamer. And learning about, like I said, social engineering is very tricky. And it's hard as a streamer because people will ask you all sorts of questions throughout the day. And a lot of times they seem innocuous, but you really have to think about what is this leading to, and what could it potentially unlock if I give away this piece of information. And so things like not using your real name, as you mentioned, with like even ordering packages and stuff like that. And people a lot of times will like, when I moved to this house, people were asking me if I was going to do like a house tour. And I was like, you don't need to see my house. What? Like, this is what you get. This view is what you get. That's it. You don't get to see the rest of my house. I don't owe you that. And I think that's part of the problem too, is that a lot of people think that they need to open more doors to people and they want to seem more approachable in order for people to like them. And I think you really have to put your foot down, especially as a woman. And I've talked with my partner about this a lot because I think I'm a person who, if you're talking about like traditional ideas of like femininity and like women who are like more girly or whatever, on the spectrum, I don't see myself as like a very feminine woman. And I've talked with her before about how that I think has protected me in a way, and it sucks like that's the reality for if like you're a pretty girl, then like you're gonna have to deal with this. And I don't know, it's really tough. And I think I just have this personality that lends to me being able to protect myself from that, because I will drop kick you if you try and come to my house, right? And like, but there's so many women who on Twitch who are just like these really nice, polite people, and it, like, how is it fair that now they have to deal with this just because they're nicer,
Well, also there is this sort of more intimate connection between audience when you're on Twitch, because it is sort of like if I met any of my mods in person, we'd like, let's go to drinks or whatever. But then there's sort of gradations of how peeps, and most of the part I feel lucky that it's always the outlier that crosses the threshold. But then it is very tempting to give more and more. Like I have a baby, and like if
Mhm.
I don't show any of my baby, I'm hiding 2/3 of my day, but then I don't want to show her to the world because so I post an occasional picture on Instagram, but then I don't want to open the door. So it's a constant like push and pull. And you're
Yeah.
totally right. It's the sort of it's weird because of the way that women are kind of taught in Silver Valley. And I actually like to talk to you about this because you have you even say that on your channel, you're a delicate balance of wholesome and lewd. And so you deal with sexual things in a way that is really fun and flirtatious. You have a gorgeous avatar.
Oh, thank
But
you.
yeah, but at the same time, do you I would you suppose that if you were a person who looked like you do, would you does having sort of this avatar allow you to be more sexual in a way that other women and also men are not as easy to close to cross the line, but also women are a little more open to you? Because I think women are not as accepting of women who are very sexual, even though we're all taught from birth that we need to be beautiful to be liked and successful in this world. So it's this horrible constant thing. So how is that experience for you, and you're being able to be sexual in a way that's a little more palatable, quote unquote, to the mainstream? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it's not taken as seriously or as intimidating if you're sexual as like a character, because that's in video games and anime, and it's very normalized. And like I'm not super sexual, but I'll make jokes about my boobs or whatever because I have them
Yeah.
and people see them. But I think it's a lot less uncomfortable being an avatar, and it's just like in the community, the anime community, being lewd is just a normal thing.
Mhm.
And it's we do it in like a fun way. But I think we almost get less harassment from men than if we were normal
Yeah, if you were a
streamers.
real person with your
Yeah,
figure and the way that the things you talk about, people would consider it more permissible to be over
like
the
an
line.
airheaded
Yeah.
e-girl, whatever kind of thing. But we don't really get that as much. And I'm not exactly sure why. I don't know if it's just the community that we cultivate.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'll get a couple comments here and there, but they're more joking and they're not really the serious, creepy kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's really interesting. It's so wow, Grandma, I want to ask you, knowing, have you experienced anything where you felt uncomfortable, and would that lead you to tell your children or your grandchildren or whatever, as a woman, this is not a good thing to do? Like, is there any point where you felt uncomfortable, and how have you dealt with that
On streaming.
on streaming? Yeah.
Yes. Well, fortunately, I have really good, quick moderators because
Mm-hmm.
not being raised with social media until later in life, some things I didn't even know what they were. And they'll ask me, Grandma, do you know what, are you part of, and I'll go, and my moderator immediately blocks it. And then he whispers me, no, and so I feel very protected because
Mm-hmm.
once in a while I will catch, oh yes, people come on but not very often anymore. And they're very uncomfortable. They
Yeah.
make you feel like, why am I doing this? So I think
Or
you need
just
to
get your
be,
feelings hurt, just
yeah,
walk
you
in and kind of
do,
punch them in the
and
face.
I'm going, why would you even ask somebody my age that kind of a question,
Yeah.
so it is uncomfortable, and I value my moderators very, very much. I would,
Yeah.
if you stream, make sure you got people to cover for you, to be with you, because there's most people out there are great,
Yeah.
but once in a while you're going to
Yeah.
get the other. And being my age, I don't know, I guess it doesn't matter what the age. And I'm pretty strong in, I mean, I did a job in a man's world delivering Wonder Bread. And so I was with all men, and I was one of the first women out there loading a truck. And that's the same time I was mountain climbing. And I, they just knew, I think by your vibes in real life,
Mm-hmm.
they can tell, somewhat. Once they may try. I only had one guy try, and he said something. He was down and he said, "Well, I like that view down there." And I said, "You say that again, and I'll slap you good." You know, and he never said it again. But I won't put up with it.
Yeah,
I
good. No, it's
I
good.
respect myself. You need to respect yourself. If you respect yourself, you won't allow anybody to walk over on you. That's my feeling. Is
No, you're totally right. Yeah, yeah. Kason, before we go into a kind of our last couple questions, we're going to be doing some Q&A from chat, you guys. So if you have questions, Britt behind the scenes, Britt Wiseman, who is my wonderful producer, she is going to be giving me some questions for the last 15 minutes. But we have some wrap-up questions. But before that, I want to kind of continue along this line that, you know, I think that there is a cultural thing. You know, when I first started 12 years ago doing gaming content, I was treated kind of like this unicorn, this aberrant person. And because of the way I represented myself, I hopefully, and I've heard that I've opened the door to a lot of women to come into these kind of geek and streaming and gaming and stuff like that. But we've seen a lot of ups and downs as far as like women in this industry. And for me, I think it kind of starts at the top. And Kason, you had this amazing thing that you did the other day with Nega Oryx, calling out Ubisoft for Ubisoft Forward, because well, why don't you describe, you know, a little bit of it? It just really was amazing because I felt it's really important for us to have advocates to call out the top, because it all trickles down to the user. If the big companies can set an example and say, no, this is not acceptable, then it will eventually trickle down at least a little bit to the bottom. And can you talk about that advocacy and how you kind of make that important?
With, you know, with everything going on, Ubi Forward had their presentation for every, you know, all their upcoming games and everything. But we knew, you know, earlier this year, there were a lot of different touchier subjects coming out about Ubisoft that they weren't really addressing. So I want to say around July, they had made it known that they weren't going to address it. And then we fast forward and the Ubi Forward was actually in September. So right before it went off, they did a tweet and they kind of touched on it, but not a lot. And it was just, you know, it felt more appeasing than anything.
Mm-hmm.
So we were hosting the weekly that day, and, you know, Nega Oryx brought it up, and, you know, and it was one of those things like, absolutely, we should mention it, because if we don't, we all know that once Ubi Forward starts, it's going to be nothing but just tweets, just, you know, drowning out something that is a big deal, something we should be talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And Twitch production was very cool about it. And they said, if this is what you want to talk about, go for it. So it was really cool of them to be on board with it. And I know, especially when you're first getting started or you're in this space and you do feel like, you know, you're not the majority, it might feel difficult to speak up or say something because you don't want to come off like, you know, that one person that may be quote unquote complaining, or you don't want to rub anyone the wrong way because they're a dev, or, you know, anything along those lines. But it's one of those things where we should set the tone for what we stand for and what we're willing to allow. And I think when you do that, it kind of helps you cultivate people that you want to be around, people that want to work with you. And even, you know, I feel like at the end of the day, we set the pace or the tone for what we do, and we will find a way to bring those people together. And it's a good way for us to build our communities, is by putting ourselves out there in a way that you can foresee yourself being that way in the future. I think when you first start, you don't want to, you know, rock the boat, and you kind of want to come off a little nicer. But the harsh reality is, the longer you put up with certain things, it's going to be harder to make that shift. So if it's something you don't like or you don't agree with, you might as well just get that out the way and say, hey, don't do that. Or we don't do that here. Or I don't support this. Or, you know, Ubisoft, you could have touched more on that. And it sets a precedence. And it kind of shows where, you know, one, you can speak up, because we should, you know, we see things we don't like. We should speak up. And it also lets other people feel as if, okay, so I'm not alone. And gives other people courage to speak up, speak out.
I mean, I think it's so important. And, you know, I have been in this industry, not the gaming, I mean, the gaming industry tangentially for a long time. And I have in comics industry and other places, and I've been treated very, very well. And I will say that that is a total privilege. And the last couple of years have come out that people I did business with, people I knew socially that I had at my parties, were abusing women, were using their power in a way that was distasteful and disgusting. And it shocks me that, so I just want to urge anybody who could be an ally in certain situations, whether it's in a stream, in a chat, in a workplace, that, you know, we have to be the advocates for the people who have least power. Because they experience the worst and the worst of the behavior from the people who can show two faces. So just because you haven't experienced behavior from someone doesn't mean that another person who has different circumstances isn't experiencing that. And the more you can stand up with people, like, if you are in a chat, like this is what's wonderful about Twitch and what's not great about Twitch is that there is a systemic situation where the baseline of interactions is unacceptable and uses terms that are unacceptable. And there are a lot of chatters who are like, what are you doing? Why are you using these words? Why are you in a public forum saying this to somebody else? But we can't all rely on mods. If you're in a channel and someone uses a word that is unacceptable, you can tell them, hey, that's not cool. And I think that kind of peer pressure in a very basic human way allows us to kind of clean up the world in a way. Like we can all see that the standard of behavior is set by a leader, and you can be a leader just as much as the person on camera. So anyway, just a couple last questions before we go to questions, my questions before we go to their questions, chat's questions. And I want to thank all of you for being here again. We are discussing amazing pro streamers here, and I'm going to call you all pro. Doesn't matter. You are pro to me. We are also working with womeningames.org. We are giving $750 to them. Every single episode we'll be giving to a different charity. That's our charity of today. If you'd like to give to them in solidarity, that would be awesome. If not, just welcome to the stream. Just for the last couple questions, how do you say this is for me. I have had burnout many times in my career. YouTube just absolutely throttled me, and I just kind of cratered for a couple of years. But what keeps you excited about streaming? How do you keep the long hours up, and the fear of leaving? Even if you leave for a week, you might lose audience. There's always that fear that you're going to lose attention. How do you deal with that? Kaysen, you want to start? How do you deal with that sort of staying excited? Do you try to reinvent yourself, but you might lose audience? How do you deal with that? And how do you keep excited about this profession?
Well, I'm variety. So because of that, I feel like it's kind of tough. When I think burnout, although it does happen in variety, especially when you feel like you don't know what to play, that's probably our equivalent of burnout from per se, playing the same game on, repeat every stream. I'm an Overwatch streamer, an Apex streamer, or WoW, with variety, I think we get an opportunity to switch it up. Like the way we're ran, like the way I stream is we play the game, we beat the game, we move on to another game. So there's always something going on. And I do my best. And I know it seems tough, especially because there's so many highs with streaming where you'll have days where you feel like you are just taking over the world and you are killing it. So you find yourself adding. I don't like to add anything that I might take away. I think it's easy to add, but if I have to take something away, then I'm not doing it right. So I do my best not to just add to the workload. I try to be as honest with myself as I can. And it's not easy because you want to believe, I can do everything. We're human and we probably can't. So before, I commit to, I'm streaming 7 days a week for 12 hours a day. You have to be honest with yourself. Is this something you're really going to be able to do? Can you do it when it loves you? Can you do it when you feel like you're completely failing as a streamer? Because everyone has that feeling like, I don't know, I'm terrible right now. It has to be something that you can consistently do. So I started off very small time, and it was only a couple hours, a couple times a week. And if ever I added to that, it was something I knew I could do without having to take it away in the future. And PS, you may want to add a YouTube later on, or now TikTok is a thing. I try to give myself room to grow. So if I do end up wanting to add to it, it's still not going to make what we do unbearable, because I know the look is, you have to be streaming nonstop. But I'm happy to say the times have kind of changed. People aren't really doing that as much as they used to, or you just never logged off. You're seeing more people get up and stretch and add things to their regimen that we just weren't seeing like back in the day. It was like,
you can't do hardcore. You're just going to collapse. You'll burn out. And you tend to play similar games. And I think that seems even more challenging. Like for me, like I'm the same way. I play different games. I'll just stop after one if I'm bored. Like I'm clearly not professional, but I mean, I guess I'm a professional because I have followers and subscribers, but you really tend to define yourself really clearly on your streams. And how do you mix it up and stay excited about what you do every day? And doesn't feel like you're just going to, pump some gas. Cause I've had some acting jobs and I'm like, I don't want to be here right now. This is not glamorous. I don't care about this. It's like, I could have a desk job and be happier. So you don't want that to happen. So how do you keep it fresh?
Yeah. I definitely get like kind of stuck on games for a while because I really like to learn and kind of perfect new things. So I'll just get like a dog with a bone where I'm just like, I want to finish this one thing. And I've been streaming for just over 6 years, and I think what really helps me with the variety in my life is being able to travel, and that's been really hard this year.
Oh
Being able to
yeah.
travel, going to events and like going to like studios and stuff like that, meeting devs and having that to kind of break up my day. And especially like today is actually 1 year since last year's TwitchCon. So this is I saw on my phone. You know how in Google
It's like last year on this
yeah,
day last
like
year, you
all
were
my
having
like
fun
photos
with
from
people.
it's like I was so sad because like those events really motivate me. So this year has been very challenging for me. And I've really had to like step back from my streaming, and it's been tough. Like I have noticed a hit to like my sub count, and um I've started saying no to more like sponsored things where people are like, "Hey, we have this deal for you. Do you want to do this? It's like a 3-month commitment. We need you to do like these 14 things." And I'm just like, I can't. I have to, I've over the past like month, I've just been like, no, no, no. Unless it's something like pretty quick that I can do, then I've just been turning it all down because I think people need to be very conscious of the fact that when you are self-employed, part of your job is taking care of yourself. Because if you're at 40%, you're doing 40% of your job, and it's not like you're not even doing a good job at your job.
Absolutely.
So what's the point? So like you really have to take care of yourself. And I've really been trying to make a lot more time for myself over the past like month or so.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, like I have noticed a financial impact. And fortunately for me, I'm in a place where that's okay, where I'm like, okay, I can take that hit. Some people can't afford to do that.
Yeah.
And I can understand how that becomes very difficult for them to be like, okay, I'm gonna stop streaming, because you see like you get addicted to it where you're like, oh, the numbers are going up. If I'm live, the numbers go up.
Yeah.
And if I'm not live, the numbers go down, and that's not good because that represents my income.
No, it's very hard. Sort of like people's attention is very fickle, and you'll always have your core, but being able to have your self-worth based on those numbers and those dollars, and it's just so debilitating because you are last,
Mm-hmm.
And until I had a baby, to be honest with you, I didn't care about myself. I would just be like, what can I give? And I realized this has been a really destructive, hamster wheel you've been on.
Mm-hmm.
You are not growing as a person. So kind of lying fallow for a while artistically, definitely is important for you to become the next person you need to be, even if it sheds a little bit in the past, right?
Yeah. And I had a thought too while Cup Noodle was talking about there's a song by Regina Spektor in which she says, love what you have and you'll have more love. So one of the things that I have been trying to think about this year especially is being grateful for what I have, especially as it comes to like in terms of my streaming. Because I think a lot of times people are like, well, I want to have 10,000 viewers, I want to be Pokimane, I want to have, 20,000 viewers, I want everyone to like care about everything I do. And then you like think about the fact that like she probably has to deal with way more shit than we do in terms of like the weirdo internet people. And
Oh,
stuff,
for sure.
Like, I can't imagine how difficult that is for her. And so for me to just be like, you know what, 1,500 viewers or, whoever you are, 500 viewers, sometimes that's a good place to be at because you can just kind of fly under the radar, do your thing, enjoy your games, and not have to deal with some of the negatives that come with.
For sure. I know a lot of famous actors, and they make a lot more money, but they have an entourage of people in their house all the time, and they have to pay $4,000 a month to PR people, and they have to pay 25% here, 25% there. And so in fact, I'm like, at what point you're earning a lot of money, but so much is going out the door to support what you are. Are you enjoying all of this? And is it so heavy? Is it going to crush you? And that's what I've always found. And Twitch has really renewed my sense of that, is that smaller community, more interactivity, really doing what you love and not feeling like you're hostage to your audience is so much better than feeling like I need everybody to love me. Well, Grandma, you play one game. So how do you keep it fresh? Is it based on new content or?
Well, it's been hard the last couple of weeks because we have an expansion coming out.
Yeah.
And so I take the game very seriously, and I like to raid. So I raid 6 days a week in 3 groups.
Wow.
And so I've got a horde, so I got to get 4 druids leveled right away so that I can raid. And I don't know where I'm going to fit in a 4th raider, but I've watched it kind of the last couple of days. We've been doing achievements and mount farming and stuff, which I haven't got time to do later. So this morning I was thinking, I have an idea what I'm going to do, because I've seen it kind of not a lot of viewers the last 2 days, just because we're in this lull.
Yeah.
So
once the expansion comes out, you're going to have a lot more viewers. It's just people get a little bored with, wow, I get it.
But I thought, you know what I'm going to do? And if many of my viewers are on, I'm going to go visit every dungeon and every expansion that we've experienced. And so
Nice.
I think I'll start with vanilla and go to Stratholme
That's my
and
favorite. I love Strat.
Ubers and Lower Blackrock Spire, and then we'll move on to BC dungeons and see what we can get done and take a look at. Not they'll be easy, but I'd like to just see them and review that. So I think that's what I'm going to do in this lull
That's
starting
fun.
tonight.
Oh, great. Well, everybody check out Silverbell. What we got to get to these questions because I'm like you guys are too interesting. I feel like we could talk 8 hours. Silverbell, how do you keep you're relatively new, just like Wow Grandma, but you do a lot of different things. What are you constantly thinking creatively about what you can do differently in the channel? Or I see you do a podcast as well. Like
I do, yeah.
yeah, how do you keep it fresh and how are you kind of evolving with your channel as you have started?
I've actually been kind of drowning on trying to be too creative and thinking of too many things to add to my channel. So I'm lowering that down because there's days where you just get really burned out because you've been working all day on thinking of all this new stuff you want to add, and then it's like, oh, now I have to stream, and I'm just so burnt out and I don't want to. But
Mhm.
I find that my community helps keep me driven to keep doing it. Like I'll be like, oh, I'm not feeling that great today. I'll just do a short stream. And then it ends up being like 6 hours and I'm having the time of my life. So the short streams are never really short streams. But my community means a lot to me. And I have a Discord of like 10,000 people and they're all absolutely wonderful and they keep me going. And then I'm also a variety streamer and I
Yeah,
love
that
to
helps.
complete games. Yeah, and it helps a lot. Like I'm in the mood for a cozy game or like a scary game or a suspenseful game. So there's a lot of variety and it keeps me interested in streaming and finding out new stories and playing with my friends.
Yeah, it's great. I'm going to do some questions. We have a little bit of time for a couple questions. Sarah the Pearl asks, how do you promote positive engagement with and within your communities? You mentioned your Discord. Do each of you interact with your communities on a Discord? How do you kind of promote and how do you promote like that sort of audience to audience connection as well as you to audience connection?
If you're mean, you're gone. That's it. I think people, especially new streamers, are very careful about not wanting to ban people, right? Because if you have 5 viewers and one of them is really mean, it's still a viewer, right? Like that's still a number, but you have to think about the number of people that are being turned away by this one toxic person, right? Where they show up, they don't say anything, and they see this one person being a bully, and they're just like, well, that's not it for me.
Yeah.
And so I'm just very zero tolerance, kind of ruthless with timing people out, and that has set the standard. And once you kind of set that standard, I feel like then the community starts to manage itself, where you've got 20 or 30 good regulars who will also help with the whole situation when people kind of get out of hand.
Yeah. Kason, how do you cultivate your community and the sort of vibe there? Is that because it is a vibe? Because for me, like I always make this analogy of like you go to a bakery, right? And there's a person buying croissants and literally spitting in someone's face while they do it. Like you don't want to go back to that croissant shop, right? So it's almost like incumbent upon us to create a vibe. And that starts with us, but it also goes down to our mods and then goes down to the community at whole. And sort of like, again, it starts from the top. How do you try to do that, Kason?
Ant's completely right. It starts in the beginning. And again, it might be tough because you're just getting started and you don't want to lose viewers. But I think if you put your foot down early and you kind of present what you all stand for, it definitely trickles down. Like you're kind of, as the streamer, you're the figurehead and we set the tone. So if we let certain things slide, that means other people are going to come in and they think that's going to be okay. So if we did it, then we have mods. And then after a while, your community, you don't really have to worry about it because before you even say anything, you'll have a bunch of people jumping on one person like, hey, we don't do that here.
Yeah.
And then, and it just kind of makes them feel the odd way, the odd man, woman out. And it's like, oh, well, okay, we're not getting away with this here. And most of the time you don't even have to ban them because they kind of just leave like, oh, well, I'm not going to get the reaction I want here. So I guess my time is up and then they go on about their way.
Yeah, the one thing that I'm always proudest of is when someone comes in is just a jerk, right? And then the way that the audience or I or the mods approach someone convinces them that this is still a welcoming place for them, but this is just not the right attitude for this. Like this is unacceptable for us, but you're still welcome if you'd like to kind of adhere. And just getting one person to be like, I'm going to change my behavior because of the tone of this place so I can belong to this community, it really is like a victory. A question of each of the streamers. What's one piece of knowledge you've gained that you wish you knew when you first started streaming? Wow, Grandma, what do you think is the first thing that you wish you knew in January?
Oh my. Wow, I don't know if I can answer. There's so much that I need to learn and know. What do I wish I knew? Well, I wished I knew more about the technology of some of the stuff so
Mhm.
that I don't, I'm getting disconnects, and I've been fighting that because when you get your disconnects, you lose your viewers if they're lurking
Yeah,
and if
yeah,
they don't have a chance to come back. And so, and I want the stream to be smooth for my viewers.
yeah,
And so I guess that I'm learning so much about the technology,
yeah.
and
Technology.
I'm watching Ann Munition, and I'm just so impressed with you other ladies that your knowledge that you have, all of you, and I'm listening.
No, it's been an amazing discussion. I've learned a lot as well. Silver, what is one thing that you wish you knew?
Oh no, I'm on the spot.
Well, you're on the panel.
I think just not to be so hard on yourself. Like I would spend hours trying to make sure everything is perfect, make sure my layout is perfect for every single game, and
Mhm.
spend so much time comparing myself and trying to have everything literally perfect, and spending a lot of time on stuff that I don't think people even notice that I change or that I work on. And it's like I'm spending all this time stressing when I could just be having fun and playing games and just growing my community instead of just worrying about all the stuff that really doesn't matter.
Yeah, absolutely. Kason, what do you think?
Give yourself room to grow. When you first start streaming, you are literally allowed to do whatever you want. So if you've ever had the thought, do that. If you decide you want to play WoW and then the next day you want to play Apex, do that. Do all the things so you can find your little place in the sun, as opposed to, well, I think this is going on right now, so maybe I should be here, maybe I should be there. Just do everything, because at this point, you can do anything you want because you don't have anyone expecting anything at all. I think after a certain point, you're going to find a niche in like a groove, and there's going to be levels of expectancy for what you're going to be doing. So sometimes it's hard to break from that. When you first start, you can literally be anyone and do anything, and no one can tell you you're not supposed to do that or you can't do that because you're new. You can do whatever you want. So do everything. That way
Yeah.
you can roll things out and see what works best for you.
No, that's a good point. I mean, there's a sweet spot between what you find, what you enjoy, and what audience responds to, right? And like, for me, I'd love to do Oscar Wilde, play readings on my channel. Like, and that's okay. Like, you never know. And but if you look at the top 10 games, you're like, I should be playing Among Us because Among Us is really popular right now. Like, that's the way you're not really following. Yeah, I happen to be playing that, but I did it because I'm doing it in a group and it's really fun. But chasing what is popular is not especially because I've auditioned for a lot of things, and the roles that I would hate to get are the ones that I would be upset if I got them because I wasn't right for them, right? And you don't want that. What if you got successful playing Fortnite or Apex and you hate that game? Then you're trapped, right? And what is one thing that you wish you knew?
I think that most of what I feel like I've learned has really been about myself, learning more about my personality and things. I mean, when you do a job for 6 years, you're bound to change and to grow and to learn more about yourself in that job.
Mhm.
And I think that there's definitely things about myself that I have learned that are not necessarily things that I'm proud of my personality. Like I think I have a very short temper sometimes, and I see that when I react to people in my chat, whereas
Mhm.
just like innocent person will wander in at like the wrong time where I just like died in a raid or something, and I'm just like, like a huge monster all of a sudden. And it's like I've tried really to like dial that back sometimes, and so things like that where you like recognize in your personality things that you could work on and that you could change.
Mhm.
And I think one important thing for people to try, if I'm trying to like give someone advice, is to not work yourself to death, right? Like this is a job, like it is a job. And when people say like, oh, you just play video games, it's no big deal, like it is a job. And you should keep that in mind, and you should not work 16 hours a day. Like you have to manage your own time, like Covenant was saying earlier. Like you have to
Yeah.
be careful about how much you work.
Yeah. We have so many good questions, you guys. This is the premiere of the show. I think I'll leave more time for questions next time because you have so many great ones. So we only have time for one more question. Thank you so much for being here. My last question to each of our panelists is from Ori Lalu. What would you say to kids, particularly girls that play games and look up to you and other female streamers? What would you say to girls who are looking to get, and specifically, I think, kind of tweaking it, what would you say to women or girls who are looking to gaming and they either might not want to get into it because of the things they've heard, or they're looking into it and there might be things they need to know before they get into it? What would be your advice, Silvervale?
Just to be safe, protect yourself. Don't mention, like, you want to be open as a streamer. You want to get to know your viewers and make friends, but don't share things that aren't necessary to share. And be safe and take care of yourself. And you can still make friends with people without knowing a lot about them. So just make sure that you're being careful.
Great. Wow, Grandma?
I would have to say the same thing. They need to make sure that they don't give out too much information and make sure that they set their standards so that people respect them, and make sure that they keep their self-worth, because it's kind of dangerous out there, and so you need to be careful, but have fun. You can have fun and be careful at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Kason?
There's no beating safety. Safety will always come first, especially in this day and age. And it honestly, from what Ann was saying, it goes beyond just streaming as far as just social practices in general. Like for me, I couldn't imagine doing this when I was younger, having, your Facebooks and your Twitters. It's really like you're growing up in front of the world with all these social platforms. So safety is definitely number one. And two, if you decide to start streaming, I know it sounds tough, but don't take yourself too seriously. I think sometimes we take it so seriously that we're really hard on ourselves. I think just have fun and just do what you want, stay true to you, and just don't take it too seriously. Learn to laugh at you. I've learned to laugh at myself a lot. At first, I think at times we want people to perceive us in a very specific way, like I'm really smart or knowledgeable about something, or, witty, as opposed to just being you. And I think in doing this, I've learned a lot about me. And after a while, I promise you won't even care about what people think. It's just kind of like you kind of know who you are. And Joe, just do your best to be decent.
That's age too. I'm just like, screw it. If you don't like me the way I am, that's this. And one last thing.
I think my advice would be that even if you're not interested in gaming and streaming, but just as a young woman, if you try to define what you can accomplish or what you can be interested in by what other people tell you that you can accomplish or be interested in, you'll never do anything, because there's always going to be one loud person on their keyboard being like, you suck at this, you're not good, whatever, because it's easy. It's easy to say you're not good at this, or you're not going to be good at this, or you can't do this. It's really, really easy. And it's hard to try to do things. It's really hard to try. So you have to put in that effort and to make that attempt to do stuff despite what people are going to tell you.
That's amazing. That's great advice. I guess mine would be, girl gamer used to be a dirty phrase, and just being labeled a girl gamer. And I used to reject it a lot. But I've had a lot of mixed feelings about it now, because I feel like, there is a weird acceptability in this gaming culture where you're telling women they have to abandon who they are in order to assimilate, in a sense. So you got to get rid of that girl stuff in order to be a part of our club. I have to say there's room for everyone to be who they are and represent themselves. They don't have to abandon who they are or part of their identity to be accepted, because the norm should be inclusive of everybody. So don't be afraid to call yourself whatever you want to call yourself, and don't be pigeonholed, because you just are what you are. Thank you, all of you. Can you guys let me know? Everybody follow all our amazing panelists at Cup of Noodle, at Ammunition, at _Silvervale_, and Wow Grandma 78. You guys are incredible. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
We will be back next Monday at 2 p.m. with comic book artists and writers. I'm very excited about it, and I hope you guys will come back. I will see you guys. My streaming schedule is below. Follow me. I'll be online tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.